Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I am your host, as always, Ben Thomas. And unless you've been living under a rock for the last 3 or 4 years, you probably have heard a ton about one of the newest venues in Las Vegas, and that's the Sphere. And I'm excited because The Wizard of Oz is actually coming to the Sphere. It's a total reimagination, including redone visuals, staying true to a lot of the elements that made The Wizard of Oz so special itself, including elements like the audio and the music and things like that. And I'm excited to get a chance to go see it. But, you know, I had some questions about it and was curious about what it took to actually put that together and to have that conversation. I brought on someone today who I think will be able to answer those questions pretty well. And that's Grammy Award winner and musical supervisor for The Wizard of Oz at Sphere, Julianne Jordan. Julianne, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
You know, Julianne, I think ironically enough, Wizard of Oz for most of us creatives is like the one thing that we can all agree was perfect. But Sphere actually takes that to the next level, right? It gives us the opportunity to experience something that was designed for the small screen in a much larger screen and bring that to the next generation. And this actually isn't your first project at Sphere. You had a chance to collaborate on the Postcards from Earth film as well. I got to ask, what brought you back for this second project?
I mean, you know, what didn't bring me back? It's so exciting to, as someone who's, you know, worked in film music and, you know, more traditional venues of, of movie theaters, for about 30 years now. And to be asked to work on something, you know, in a venue that is so cutting edge. I would never pass up that opportunity. And I'm just so grateful that they asked me back for the second project. So, and how can you turn down The Wizard of Oz?
Well, that's my next question, right? Is what hooked you on The Wizard of Oz? I mean, what makes that so unique to kind of bring it into the Sphere environment?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think, you know, I, along with millions of other people, have only the fondest memories of, you know, watching this every year when it was broadcast on TV. I can't remember if it was, you know, if it was like over Christmas or Thanksgiving or when they aired it, but sitting down at the TV, it was a huge event to watch this movie every year. And the iconic music and, you know, just everything about it, like, you know, being frightened of the witch and the monkeys, but still really just wanting to watch it all the time. And so me, like millions of other people, like just this iconic film, you know, and being able to bring it to the Sphere and knowing what we were going to be able to do with the sound was incredibly exciting to start to figure out that process.
Yeah.
How we were going to do that.
Yeah, well, what's interesting too is I know a lot of people typically what hooks them to the Sphere is sort of the visual and the surrounding nature of kind of the screen and things like that. But what keeps people coming back, I say, is the audio, right? Because there's you leave with such a positive experience, and it's great. You can have all the visuals on screen you want, but if the audio is not great, then it really dampens the experience. But you know, I'm curious, as you, in the context of sort of Wizard of Oz, obviously Sphere can do things like directional audio and all sorts of different things. But what sort of excited you from an audio capabilities when you came into designing these soundtracks and audio elements for Sphere specifically?
What excited me was that we, you know, the idea was to make this a grand experience with music and the most emotional it could be. And that was, you know, early on having the conversations about re-recording the actual music. So we, along with Warner Brothers Sound Department, had to make sure that, you know, we wanted to obviously keep all of the original vocals and dialogue. So we had to make sure that those could be, singled out and, separated from the music track. So that was a process. And once we realized that we could do that and it would sound amazing, then we knew that we could go ahead and re-record the music and make this, what it was, what it always was. But we were just hearing that in 1939 mono on our little TV screens for years. And now people could actually hear this gorgeous Academy Award-winning score in a way that they've never heard it before. And so for me, that was the most exciting thing about this, like getting the A team together to do this recording, early on, deciding that we were going to do this on the old MGM scoring stage, which is now the Sony scoring stage, where they recorded the original. It was the first score recorded, on that stage, and knowing that we could replicate that sound.
You talked sort of about that sound profile being mono, right? And most people probably coming to see the show don't have necessarily an understanding of, okay, mono versus stereo versus 5.1 versus whatever sound systems you want to call it. But the beautiful thing about kind of the way that you guys have honored that process and re-recording process is that it actually amplifies the score in such a unique way, right? Because now you can hear maybe some of the elements and the strings that you couldn't hear on, the tiny little TV speakers and things like that. What are some of the things that you think might surprise people from a score whenever they get to hear this in sort of a larger, expansive environment versus maybe what their experiences have been with those small TV speakers?
Yeah, I think even, as simple as really paying attention to this score. Everyone knows the songs. And I think when they hear the intricacies of the actual score, it's going to make this a bigger experience than it was. And they're going to realize like how many of the song themes were incorporated, into the score, which, subliminally, or subconsciously, makes you think of those songs again and the characters. And that's what score does, with themes. So, I think that it's just going to be, for people hearing this for the first time, it's going to be like, wow, that this score is actually amazing. And, I think, like I said, people mostly, they heard the songs. And it really, like, especially during the tornado scene, that score is, and I've heard from, the musicians, it's one of the most difficult score pieces to perform. So, the intricacies of it. So, it'll just like make people appreciate that a lot more. And, yeah.
Well, look, you talk about the tornado scene. Obviously, scenes like that and songs like Follow the Yellow Brick Road, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, all these are iconic songs. But I've got to ask, from a personal standpoint, was there a moment sort of in the music process, or whether the re-recording or kind of hearing things for the first time, where you realized that, hey, this thing might actually work? This is kind of unbelievable. What was that moment for you?
The moment is when we were on the Warner Brothers soundstage, and we heard Judy Garland's a cappella vocal for Over the Rainbow for the first time. And there was not a dry eye when that finished. And then we realized that we could actually do this, and that the emotion of this was going to come through in a big way in that venue. She was 16 years old at the time. There was no auto tuning, no nothing. And it was just like the most pure thing we'd ever heard. So that was the moment when it was, for me, just exciting.
Well, in those moments, I just am picturing, a 13, 14-year-old in the sphere watching this for the first time who probably has heard about Wizard of Oz, certainly wasn't alive in the 30s to watch this, and, maybe have heard their parents talk about it. I anticipate those similar moments happening because, for I guess most of us unwashed masses here, right? We grew up with it, right? It's always sort of been in the lexicon, but, for one reason or another now, maybe it's some folks have watched it a little bit less, but this really is an opportunity to reintroduce it to a completely new generation in a way that is attractive to them, in a way that really is impactful for them as well. What are some of those things? Obviously, you talked about your moment kind of hearing that a cappella, but what are some of those moments or even things that you want people, whether it's people who've seen this for the 1,000th time or maybe even the first time, to take away from the show?
I want them to realize how timeless it is and how a great song is a great song. No matter, these songs have, stood the test of time because they're so great. And the way that we're doing them, and the lushness of the orchestra with these songs and being played by the best musicians in the world. I think it'll be really interesting, like you said, kids who have never seen this film, seeing it for the first time in this venue, and what they'll leave thinking about it, and I just, I think that is why it's timeless, because these songs are so incredible and the performances are so incredible. You see Ray Bolger and if I Only Had a Brain, and it's like, he's unbelievable in this film. And that's actually my favorite performance in the film.
Oh, you've already got me fired up. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I in my mind, the one scene that I am most looking forward to is seeing the Wizard for the first time. For me, that's always been the one that stands out. And obviously, we can dig into the plot points of it, but it's such a critical part of the movie and it being a show and all these different things. And that's the thing that I'm looking forward to most. But, I'm curious, Julianne, as you sort of think about maybe, I don't know. Well, I want you to think a little bit forward ahead. We didn't even have to talk about the Wizard of Oz, but what are some of these things, some of these concepts that we're able to do now, whether it's movies like Wizard of Oz, or maybe it's movies that, even from the Chaplin days, what are some of the things from a film standpoint and audio and music standpoint that you think these innovations in technology now will allow us to do? And what excites you most, even from a musical supervision standpoint?
I think that, just people hearing these iconic scores in a way that they've never heard them before. And I think it'll lead to more appreciation of film music in general. And that is an amazing thing, and I was, now with how the world is, the film world is right now, a lot of things are going overseas, and the same for scoring, actually. And so to keep this in LA with those incredible musicians was a deliberate thing that we wanted to do, because a lot of these, this is like bigger picture thing, but there's only a few scoring stages left in LA, and it's very sad because we have the absolute best players and the absolute best stages to do these. So I'm hoping that also makes people realize like how great these players are. And if we can keep film scoring in LA, that will be huge for our industry.
Well, Julianne, I want to give you a big thank you in advance for all the memories that you're going to be able to help create through your work on this project. And I know that I will be one of the beneficiaries of that. So big thank you for me, and thank you for all the attendees that are going to come check it out. But, Julianne, it's so great to hear people like you that are willing to innovate and try new things, but also stay so true to the core of the music or the core of the spirit of these things. And folks like you are what's keeping the industry alive. And whether it's projected on a movie screen or a TV screen, or whether it's in the sphere, folks like you really are the reason that the industry continues to thrive. So thank you so much for your work on this.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure, and I'm excited for you to see it and everyone else to experience it, because it's really incredible.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and thank you all for tuning in as well. Be sure to go check out Wizard of Oz at Sphere starting, I believe it's the 28th of August. It's going to be unbelievable. Can't wait to hear all of these fantastic reviews and pieces of feedback coming back. But thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to check us out next time on Pro AV Today.